So I've been riding the Ridstar Q20 for about a month and a half now, and I've already put nearly 500 miles on it. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about how the bike has been semi-long term. I see a lot of reviewers talk about a bike the day that they review it and unbox it, but a lot of times they either have to send it back or they just have so many different bikes that they can't use them enough. So anyways, I've lived with this bike for a while now. Let's talk about how it's been.
So overall it's been great. This thing's super solid and it's tons of fun to ride around. And I mostly ride on trails like this, but I've actually been doing a lot of kind of light off-roading with this thing since it's got the power for it. And reliability on this thing has been really solid. I've never had it leave me stranded or anything like that. Never even really a hiccup. This thing's always started, it's always run, and reliability's been really good. And I say that because I know that a lot of people will use this as their commuting bike. They might rely on this thing to get them to work and to get to the store and stuff. And even though I don't commute on this thing, I can say with confidence that I trust this thing to get me where I need to go, even though I ride this thing mostly for fun. So I've actually been impressed with the range on this bike as well. If I'm keeping this thing around 21 to 25 miles an hour, I can easily get over 30 miles on this thing. Now, I've never actually wore the battery down completely, so I don't know what the actual top end of the range is, but I do know that you can get over 35, maybe even 40 if you're really taking it easy. But the problem is when you're really riding this thing hard and you're on full throttle, you're sucking a lot of power out of that battery, so it's gonna drain a lot faster. And I would say for that, it'd probably be 20 to 25 miles, depending on conditions and how heavy you are. But I mean, if you're just taking it easy, kind of like I am right now, I'm going about 17, 18 miles an hour, you can get a lot of range out of this thing. On my review of this bike, I saw somebody in the comments section mention that there is cheaper versions of this same bike with smaller batteries. And they come with like a 15 amp hour battery, and I think one might even have a 12 amp hour battery. And I mean, that's cool, but honestly, I would pay the extra money and get the extra range out of this thing because you never know when you're gonna need to have a few extra miles of range. It's just nice to have. So another thing that I might end up doing with this bike too is adding another 48 volt, 10 amp hour battery on this thing. And B-Rich Solution actually has a good video on how to do that. It's really simple and everything's just plug and play. And the cost to do that would probably be about another $250, maybe $300 with everything. So it's not bad to add a few extra miles to your range, but it is getting colder out here. And I don't know how much I'm gonna be riding this thing in the winter, so we'll see about that. Maybe I'll add that on later this year or early next year. So as far as build quality and the frame on this thing, it's still holding up really well. I mean, I've only had it for about a month and a half and only have about 450 miles on this thing, but it still is pretty tight. Everything feels really good. I haven't had any issues. The only thing is that the controller kind of rattles around under the seat sometimes. Whoa, that's a snake. That's a snake, man. Wow. So the brakes on the Ridstar are actually really good. You can hear I locked up the back there. We can kind of do some wheelies on this thing even. And I actually did have an issue with the front brake just making a horrible squeaking sound. It was terrible. And it sounded like a garbage truck stopping. Like it was just squeaking, it was crazy. It would freak people out when you pull up behind them. So I did end up trying to fix the squeaky brakes. And what I ended up doing first is I just resurfaced everything. I took the rotor off and the brake pads and I just sanded them down and hit them with some brake cleaner. And unfortunately, I did that a few times and it did not work. So then I figured I would order some brake pads for this thing. And I found out that these brake pads are basically non-existent outside of Ridstar's eBay page. I couldn't find any replacement brake pads for this thing. Maybe they'll pop up later on, but these brake pads on this bike have 2 pins instead of 1, and a lot of the ones that I was finding, there was just 1 pin in the middle. I'll put up some pictures. But this one has 2 pins, and I couldn't find anything that even looked remotely close to what I needed. So I ended up going to Ridstar's eBay page, and they have replacements there. And eventually I got those in, but in the meantime, they come from China. So I had to wait like 2-3 weeks to get them in. So what I ended up doing in the meantime was I just bought a new rotor off of Amazon, and that rotor was more of like a bicycle rotor, so it was a lot thinner. And it actually worked on stopping the sound, but the rotor was actually so thin that the brake lever was sinking in a lot, so I didn't like that. So I just kind of dealt with that for a little bit until the pads came in. So eventually the new brake pads did come in, and I decided to try to resurface the rotor one more time and throw the new pads on. And what do you know, it stopped it. So luckily I know a little bit about fixing bikes, but if you're somebody who doesn't know and doesn't want to tinker around, taking this thing to a bike shop and having them fix it would be a pain in the butt, and it would definitely cost you some money to get that done. So even though it's just kind of an annoyance, it still could cost you some money, and I could see how some people would be annoyed by that. So another part that I swapped out on this bike so far is the rear shock. and I replaced the rear shock because the one that it came with was kind of a cheap, it looked like an air shock, but it actually wasn't. It was just a coil and it was covered up. But I replaced it with a Improve the ride quality a little bit. It's a D&M shock, so I mean, it's an okay brand, and I got it for about 50 bucks off of Amazon. But it was just a direct bolt-on, and everything is good, and it's smooth and everything. It does help iron out a little bit more of the bumps. It's not a super plush ride, but it does help. There's not really much travel I've noticed on either the factory shock or this aftermarket one, but the ride is a lot better because that other shock really only would absorb, like if I was going down a curb or something, it really didn't absorb many big bumps. And even though this one still is a little bit stiff, it's not bad, and it definitely improved the ride. If you wanted to get an even better ride, you could probably add an air shock to this thing, and those shouldn't be too much, probably like 70, 80 bucks off of Amazon. But overall, I'd say it's not necessary to replace the shock. It's not a terrible shock, but it might not last you very long. I don't know if I talked about this in the review, but this thing climbs hills pretty well. This is a fairly steep hill that you'd be struggling to pedal up if you had a regular bicycle, but this thing just handles it well. It even accelerates up it. So I really like the power on this bike. It's a lot better at climbing hills than my other Anchier bike. Now the tires on this thing are pretty good. They're knobby, and they are a little bit slippery if you're on a wet surface. I may or may not have wiped out on a wet parking lot, but I was okay and the bike's okay and everything. But still, you just gotta be a little bit careful because these tires can be slippery, but I think they're pretty good for going off-road and everything. And especially since I do take this thing off-road a lot. Now, when I do wear these tires out, I might replace them with street tires, but I think these should last me at least 1,000 miles. The rear's worn out a little bit more than the front, which is to be expected since this is, obviously there's a motor in the rear. But overall, I think the tires that they put on this thing are pretty good. The headlight on this bike also is really, really good. I was really impressed with this thing. I don't ride it a whole lot at night, but it is nice to have in case you're coming home in the dark. And this is very bright. Like, I was on a pitch black trail and it lights up everything in front of me just fine. So headlight, I have no complaints about. It's really good. So overall, guys, I can say after about 400 or 500 miles on this thing, I'm super happy with it. Now, I bought this thing with my own hard-earned money. I'm not sponsored by Ridstar or anything like that. They didn't send me anything for free. And I can say that I'm really happy, and I can definitely recommend this to you guys. Even though I did have that hiccup with the brakes, that is a pretty easy problem to solve, and I don't think that should deter you from buying this bike. If you're in the market for a relatively powerful e-bike like this, maybe you need it to commute, or maybe you just want to go fast and have fun, I can definitely recommend it, whether you're commuting or whether for fun. I would say go for it. I can for sure see myself putting over 1,000 miles on this thing, so maybe I'll do a 1,000-mile update later on to keep you guys updated on how this thing's going. But for now, everything's running great. I love this bike, and go ahead and use the link in the description if you want to check one out for yourself. All right, guys, that's it for today. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.